Well, I'm Charles. My object of desire is to reclaim the innocence I lost. And the innocence I lost basically in terms of believing in justice. What I will share with you now is actually the beginning of a novel. And it's the introductory part of a novel. An acceptable end to a tragic story. Kamana steps out into the surprisingly mild April air. He ignores the appeals of his friends to have one last drink. It is a beautiful evening, a perfect end to a night of celebration. He is reveling in his acquittal. True, it took time, but what a triumph. To be the first person in the history of the International Criminal Court in The Hague to have had his indictment reversed. This night with friends has been for Kamana a perfect way to rejoice in his seemingly endless ability to emerge victorious from desperate legal battles. First, there was the dismissal in Kosovo of the case concerning his involvement in acts of genocide. Then winning the case against the UN for unlawful dismissal. Even better still, netting double the initial compensation on appeal. And now finally this historic release from the ICC. Kamana's thin smile grows further. Fortune truly does favor the bold. The streets of Paris are empty. Somewhat unsteadily, he starts to stroll down the path that will bring him to the nearest metro station. It has been a very late night that has ended in the very early hours of a new day. With each step he takes, he feels the comfort and security of his newfound freedom. As he approaches the curb of the intersection, he senses rather than hears someone behind him. He turns and sees a figure. It starts to approach him rapidly. As it does, the apparition draws with a rapid, fluid gesture a long object from a pocket of a loosely worn coat. A glint of light ricochets off its metallic extension. The person accelerates, approaches closer, and with a quick jerk of the head looks up. Reflexively, Kamana does likewise. He feels a strange, sharp sensation glide across his throat. He grabs his neck and catches the pulsation of something warm shooting out. He suddenly feels cold. The killer walks on, heading straight for the nearest police station. Once through the door, the individual stops and stands immobile. The duty officer rubs his eyes and stares uncomprehendingly at the apparition covered in blood and in whose hand is still clutched a barber's razor. This is how I would now envisage a just end to this story, at least after having tried for so long and in so many different ways to bring Kamana Rumbashi to account for his actions. But in reality, the story does not end this way. It is not a fairy tale. The truth is that the bastard lives comfortably somewhere in France. You will probably have guessed, even from these few introductory words, that this will not be an easy story to tell. Living it was soul eviscerating. At some points along the way, I despaired, found myself in complete darkness, even contemplating checking out. I couldn't and still can't accept that an institution entrusted with the responsibility to guarantee the integrity of the Genocide Convention would be unwilling to investigate one of its own, worse still, to refuse to seek justice for those of its own Kamana Rumbashi killed. Florence, Ignace, Gaspard are among the 33 that he murdered. And then I realized that this reality was not only really unique to the United Nations. This tale could have been just as easily set in the Vatican as it tried to hide the emerging scandal of pedophile priests, or in a Bush administration trying to deny the evidence of the torture in Abu Ghraib. This is a story about systems, bureaucracies, and free will. It is about individuals who find comfort in subjugating their free will and sense of responsibility to the logic of an institution. And in so doing, they can end up allowing evil to triumph. Evil will triumph because of its ability to appear banal. Cloaked in a mantle of apparent ordinariness, evil allows individuals to find comfort in ignoring it as they do their work. But above all, evil successfully blinds people to the fact that they are being manipulated by it, being made to work for it. Confronting the injustice of this story became an obsession that defined 24 years of my life. An obsession that led me to ignore and even hurt those closest to me. An obsession that was actually a total defeat. And a defeat that in turn made me lose my taste for almost everything else. But through it all, I never lost my commitment to the values and the principles of the UN. I continue to believe that an institution born from two world conflagrations, created to confront the scourge of war, uphold the principles of we the people, has a critical role to play in today's world. But why does everything have to be so complicated? So I've decided to write this tale. But why tell it in the form of a novel? After all, the events have been lived. Is it because the story is unbelievable? It was to me who lived it. Could it be that it is only through the freedom of the imagination or the distance from reality that fiction provides that it is possible to tell this story? After all, memories are nothing more than attempts to reconstitute a reality, acts of creative interpretation rather than faithful reconstitution. For one who actually lived them, the facts of this story in themselves do insufficient justice to the intensity or tragedy of the events they try to present. One last thought before I start the narration of this tale. Allow me a bit of poetic justice, poetic license. Why not? At the beginning of this tale, I resorted to poetic justice, the license to kill. In many ways, at this point of the beginning, we are joined across time. I am only preceding you, the reader, on this journey, but I ask you to follow me. Granted, as the guide, I'm already able to anticipate some of the highs and lows of the terrain, and will use this knowledge to determine our course. But since the telling of this tale has used the medium of fiction, I do not nor cannot anticipate all of the tracks the protagonists of the story will lead us down. So, my friends, please allow me to call you friends in the anticipation of what will follow. We will start when you go on to the next page, as by then I will have finished narrating the adventure on which you are about to embark.